Going to do a Juggernaut special this week of I'm a Celebrity and The Crown, which seem to be the two things that most people are talking about. But some new figures that only 1 million people downloaded the first episode of The Crown, so maybe not everybody's watching the program that Netflix think they are.
Well, I think one of the reasons The Crown is so incredibly popular is that it does really well for newspapers, with SEO and stuff like that. And that's why people are so on papers are so keen to write about, everything about The Crown, the fashions, the true stories, the real life cast. It does really well for newspapers. And I think perhaps that's not reflected in the viewing figures because I must admit, with certainly with the last series, I didn't watch the last few episodes because I just thought I've lived through this. I've read so much about it already. I don't need to see a fictionalized version.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, as a cynical newspaper person and who has written numerous stories about The Crown, I'll proceed anyway. But it is interesting that that audience is much lower than I would have thought they would expect. But I suppose these things play out over time for them, and possibly Netflix have got it right to bring it to a conclusion at the end of what will be season 6, which they're shooting now.
I think you're right, and I think it's something that people have seen quite enough of as well. But I think you're right in the fact that the next royal scandal or big story that appears, somebody will find a parallel in The Crown, and therefore more people will go back to Netflix. I mean, for Netflix, it's I believe what the kids in the trade call it an evergreen. It will always be there, and people will just keep going back to it, telling their friends about it. It's a reaction to news stories. So I think in that sense, it's a good move for Netflix.
I mean, I also think there is some issue to do with fact or fiction, and what you're actually watching. I mean, I don't know whether the younger generation care about that so much, but I think an older generation who's brought up on watching TV programs where they have a fair idea whether something is fact or whether it's made up, and they
Mm.
make a judgment on the show and what they're seeing. Whereas I think it is very confusing with The Crown, and particularly the first episode where we've had pre-publicity from John Major, former Prime Minister, saying that a meeting between his character and Prince Charles didn't actually happen. And the scene is very well done. There's no doubt about that. And Johnny Lee Miller plays John Major very well and convincingly.
Who'd have thought it, eh? Heartthrob Johnny Lee Miller as John Major.
I know,
Brilliant.
edgy actor from the 90s suddenly is sort of the least edgiest person from the 90s. And, but it does it disappoints me that that is written into the series in that way. And I mean, people have said to me, "Well, Charles did have ideas that his mother would abdicate, and he expressed them privately." It sounds to me as though he expressed them to just about everybody he met privately. So,
Mm, mm.
in some way, that's a justification for Peter Morgan to write the scene. I don't know whether does that put people off? I think it does put people off.
I think it puts people off. I mean, I'm a bit of a stickler for historical accuracy in drama. Um, and you know, but I mean, this is the whole thing about the royals. They are unknowable. I remember hearing a radio documentary recently about talking about the way the royal family works with journalists. And one of the royal correspondent was saying, it's the most ridiculous job in the world because I can never ask the key participants in being royal. I can never ask them questions directly. It all has to go through a press office or representatives. So, we never really know what goes on with the royals. So maybe, the crown on Netflix just illustrates that, the ridiculousness of the whole thing. We can never really know. So maybe we may as well make it all up.
Yeah, I mean, there is that point to it, definitely. But I think there's also, because, as you say, we're rightly coming up to this period and it feels close for us, whether we really need the drama, because, as you say, most of us have watched umpteen documentaries on this particular period and Diana and written about them as well. Newspaper man that I am. And what does it really add now to have Elizabeth Debicki playing Diana and two unknown actors playing Will and Harry? I mean, in the second episode, or it might be the first episode, they go off on what is a second honeymoon, and I sort of felt I can't imagine William and Harry watching this episode of themselves as young boys going off on this, sort of dream Italian beach holiday. It's just it is a bit sick, really.
Yeah, this is the problem. But I mean, I think one of the things that people like about it, and the things that I enjoy, is the casting of the series. Obviously, just talking
Yeah.
about John Major there, but things like my favourite, Sir Derek Jacobi as the old Edward the
Oh,
Eighth.
yes. I thought you were gonna say the
Um,
old returner at that point.
the old retainer, yes, and Geraldine Chaplin as the Duchess of Windsor. That's what I was trying to uh, spout out. But I think it's absolutely brilliant casting,
Yes,
and I
Marcia
think,
Warren is the Queen Mother who I
mm,
think I think it's episode 4. I had to skim episode 4 because it's the Guildhall speech episode, and I was writing a story about it. She comes in and literally dresses down the Queen for what she's about to say at the Guildhall. And someone's put it to me that this would never have happened. The Queen Mother would never have gone up to the Queen and said, "No, you can't say this at the Guildhall. Whatever do you mean?"
well, I mean, for me, the Queen, the only Queen Mother worth watching is the Queen Mother on Spitting Image, which I she was a terrible old snob. She wasn't at all like that. But yeah, it is kind of, well, I think its time has come now, and I think it's right that it's winding down because, I mean, what more is there to say about the royals, really? We've kind of moved on with, Harry and Meghan now, haven't we? We've got a new king.
Yeah, true.
I,
Did they aren't we now engaged in revisionism? I mean, this is I don't know who's revising what terms, but we're literally and through something like The Crown, we're coming up with a version of Charles, aren't we? Whether what part he played in the divorce, quite a significant part, and
mm.
was he a villain? And I did strike me this week that one of the problems with The Crown now is it doesn't really have enough villains. I mean, so Charles is now a sort of cod villain, isn't he? But also in this series, Prince Philip, played by Jonathan Pryce, is a sort of villain. He turns up in the second episode, I think. There's another dressing down from a sort of senior royal, and he's having a right old go at Diana for the Andrew Morton book, and
Mm.
he refuses to sit down, and he's like a total bully. And I'm thinking, is this really what lovable Prince Philip was like? Clearly, he's not as lovable. He was meant to be her friend, wasn't he?
I mean, I've got a bit of a soft spot for Prince Philip, I have to admit. I've also got a soft spot for Jonathan Pryce. I'm torn. But it is, I mean, as I say, those of us who are sort of, watching it with a critical eye, we're always on the edge of, oh, is this real or is it not? I mean, maybe we should just, relax and watch it as a piece of drama. Maybe that's the best way to watch it.
I
But the
know, but
thing is, we'll never.
for me that's a cop out for.
But we'll never be able to, because these people, they are part of our national life. It's something you can't let go of. So maybe it's just an argument for, for people who make up new stories. That's what we want. More new stories told in a different way that we
Yeah,
don't know the ending of.
this week I thought of doing a Harry and Meghan drama about the Oprah interview and just making the whole thing up and thinking, well, they'd probably issue you a writ, but no one's issued anybody. No one from the royal family has issued a writ over the Crown, have they? But why can't you just simply make up a story about Harry and Meghan now?
That's a good idea, David. Yeah, you should write that, and I should put it to Netflix. Give it
I'll
a
write
couple
it.
of weeks. We won't have to do this anymore.
Yeah, I'll write it this afternoon.
Yeah.
We have to continue the podcast. I think it's written into our contract, isn't it?
Well, don't forget we'll be able to do the spin-off podcast about the drama, which is all the thing on audio now. It's on BBC Sounds. It's whatever the big drama series is. It's obsessed with SAS Rogue Heroes or something like that, which
Yeah.
segues nicely into.
Yes, Rogue Heroes. We'll interrupt briefly our Juggernaut special. Let's have a transition though, something quite ballsy, I think.
But this is interesting because it's masculine television on a Sunday night, isn't it? TV for men.
It's TV for men, and also with Dominic West again, this time dragging up, which I think splendid.
Yeah, he's good. I think he's a fantastic comedian. I mean, he was in that great film Pride, and he is such a great comic. So I think it's really good to see him in roles like this, even if he is playing somebody in the army.
Yeah, I think he's, is he a military spy or something like that? He's got a I he's sort of playing the sort of shifting sands of the whole drama, really, uh,
Mm,
and I thought he was really quite good. I mean, it needs somebody like that because it obviously was a sort of melting pot of various interests, Cairo, and sounds absolutely fascinating of the period. But it does make you immediately think of Lawrence of Arabia or Ice Cold in Alex, something like that, and you're sort of immediately there, really.
yeah, I mean, this is I think people are really interested to see what Stephen Knight was going to do after Peaky Blinders, and in a way, I think he has played a bit of a blinder because I mean, I don't think there is enough. Sort of rough, tough, and a bit masculine drama. I mean, I always thought of Peaky Blinders, despite the fact there are so many strong women characters in, as a series really led by men. And I think this is a great choice for him to make.
Yeah, I mean, those sorts of dramas, I don't know whether do you think they sort of cynically thought, "Oh, this is exactly what the men of Great Britain need. And this is what we get. I mean, I sort of I have a sort of inbuilt doubt as to whether we can do that as a country. We can do lots of drama. I don't know whether we can do I mean, Peaky Blinders was an exception, I suppose, definitely.
Mm. Well, I mean, I don't know. Are we? I'd really love to know. I think people are increasingly making TV by algorithms. What do
Yeah,
X amount of people in Generation X want to watch? Sorry, but I mean, I think Stephen is a very creative, maker of television, and this is his shtick, isn't it?
yeah, it
It's sort
is.
of darkly masculine drama with a bit of a smile on its face.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first episode was a little slow to get going, I thought, but then I thought when we got to the second episode, the Sterling character was a little bit more developed, which helped a bit. I think it was because he was sort of battling against the fact that he couldn't walk actually, and so you got him working against something, which is always better to watch, isn't it?
Mm.
Um, and then there was an Algerian double agent as well. I mean, there were double agents everywhere. I don't know. Can you get a triple agent? I suppose you can you?
I suppose you could if if you're really clever. But I mean, it is almost like watching, all those daytime TV films that are in black and white with people going, "I say, Ginger, let's do this." It's almost a bit of a throwback to sort of sort of old films of the 50s about the war.
I know it's
And
a bit sort of flash art where they're there in Cairo and they're just getting sort of strafed with gunfire from above, and they're just sort of, "Oh, yes, we're gonna develop this brand new sort of team of fellows, and we're gonna go and do this," but no one was getting shot. I mean, it was unbelievably sort of safe if you're, an airman running along the ground.
I mean, it has got a fantastic cast as well. I mean, I must admit, I think Connor Swindells is just, swoonsomely handsome. So I'm going to put in a vote for him. But you've got the most brilliant cast. Like Miles Jupp pops up in it, who's just fantastic, and then you've got
Yeah.
Jason Watkins at some point playing Winston Churchill. It's just such a marvelous cast
It
as
is, and it's
well.
emphasising the comedy, which often in these sort of supposedly searing dramas, is often better than the drama, really. Miles Jupp was very funny when he hadn't thought about filling the tank with petrol. I thought that's the sort of thing I'd do. That's the sort of thing I would do in war, I think. Haven't
I
Steve,
mean,
have you filled the petrol tank? Oh dear, I'm sorry.
you're absolutely right, though, because I mean, despite the fact that this was dangerous and serious work, these people, there must come a point of them having had a bit of a laugh at some point. I mean, I remember reading Sebastian Folkes's book Birdsong about the horrors of the trenches of World War I, and giving up on it, thinking there aren't enough jokes in it. And I know that sounds a stupid thing to say, but there has to be
So
some
insensitive,
levity in
Claire,
it.
so insensitive.
I am insensitive, you know me, but there has to be some levity in some situations. And I don't know, is there too much levity in this? I don't know, but I thought it was an unusual choice for a 9 o'clock on a Sunday night drama, but it does make you feel, it does energise one, I have to say.
Yeah, it's completely unlike anything that's been on the BBC for months, really. I mean, they've done a lot of well-meaning, right-on stuff, and
Mm,
all power to their elbow for that sort of material. but this has been a sort of step away, which, I welcome, and it's been very good, and I think we've got more episodes to come, so we'll probably talk about it endlessly, won't we?
Endlessly, yes, but, that's a good thing, and it's just a story that's not really been told before, which I think we both welcome, don't we?
No, absolutely, and I think I made the point in the column that, you can pick up the documentary. There was an excellent documentary on it, and it does have echoes of the documentary, based on the Ben McIntyre book,
Mm.
unfortunately, but I don't think that really matters. You can come at it fresh and then you can deep dive, can't you? Because that's quite common these days.
Oh, yeah, go for a deep dive into everything about this and become a complete nerd, and then go on Mastermind and answer questions about it.
Oh dear. Right, let's have a transition. We'll move to another Juggernaut subject. Double
Oh,
trans
that's a very fast Juggernaut. I'd arrest it for speeding.
Definitely. The Juggernaut has sort of crashed straight into the jungle of Australia for the return of "I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here." I'm welcoming that it's actually gone back to Australia because I didn't think it really worked in Wales. I mean, having said that, there seems to be as much rain in Australia as there does in Wales, so
It
I'm
can't rain hard enough for most people, though, on Matt Hancock.
no,
So,
what we need is a
raining,
complete
ra-
blizzard.
yeah, raining on Matt Hancock while he's eating a kangaroo's anus. I mean, I think that's what the nation really wants to see.
Yeah, raining on his parade. I mean, it's an interesting discussion point as to why ITV did this. I mean, apart from the obvious that it is a good booking, but sort of ambitious and quite a dangerous booking in a way because it might have turned off the complete audience. Or do you think it was just always going to win out this booking?
I think genuinely people want to see him suffer. I mean, I particularly enjoyed the moment this week where Charlene White was talking to him. Obviously a news presenter talking to him about, what went, why he chose to do it, and he said, "Oh, I want to make people see politicians as just human beings." And I think someone on Twitter said she rolled her eyes for a nation. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, if he's on there to sort of, make people see politicians as human and then talk about his dyslexia charity, there were other ways of doing it. He could have made a documentary, but no, he's going to get paid quite a lot of money for it. And certain people will see him as, people saw Boris Johnson as a bit of a laugh and a bit of a lad. And I think it's so self-serving, but it's great viewing figures for ITV. And it's a
Yeah,
lot of money on the phone lines.
yeah. Though we're recording this on Saturday morning, and I watched last night's episode, Friday night's episode, and it was starting to wear thin on me. Or that we had two of the I've got to call them islanders, but they're junglers. We've got two of the jungle contestants. I mean, hugging Hancock was like hug a Hancock, wasn't it? I'm thinking, God, put the man down, leave him alone, and stop giving so much welcome sympathy for God's sake.
Well, I mean, it's interesting as well, because you've got Sean Walsh as well, going in for rehabilitation purposes, perhaps. And I mean, I think what happened with him on Strictly it was just a ridiculously concocted story of a kiss in the street. And I think he's
Yeah,
an absolutely brilliant. I think he's an absolutely wonderful stand-up and a good, great comic. But I sympathise with him, but with Matt Hancock, politicians are a different breed, and I mean, I don't want. I like a serious politician. I don't want to, see politicians in Parliamentary Question Time and think, oh, the last time I saw him, he was eating kangaroos' testicles.
do you think this is an entree into light entertainment for Matt Hancock? I did think it was quite funny watching Good Morning Britain and Susanna Reid saying she wouldn't present the show with him because that's so typical of Good Morning Britain that they would book as another no, I said Ed Balls wasn't a failed politician, or was he? Is he yet to
Mm.
fail? Or anyway, Ed Balls is on there, isn't he? And they've had Alistair Campbell there previously. Um, she's
Yeah, but I
ruling
mean,
herself out.
Yeah, I'm delighted to hear it. I mean, I can't see Matt Hancock presenting the chase, say, if Bradley Walsh should ever decide to leave, because Bradley Walsh is brilliant with people, and Matt Hancock clearly isn't. But it's certainly given as you say, going back to Australia and these, having Matt Hancock in it. I think it's given the series a bit of a shot in the arm, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, and I mean, I know people say this, but Ant Dec are incredibly funny, and they are incredibly funny in this as well, and they're making hay. I mean, the things that they say are more hilarious and more satirical than anybody in the jungle itself are saying, so that contributes to my enjoyment of it, and I'm sure everybody else's. But I still think if you're getting a mauling from Boy George, it's not much of a mauling, is it?
Oh, I don't know. He was done for chaining up that young man to a wall, and he served time for it. So you know, I think George is a big Irish brawler. I would underestimate him at my. I wouldn't like to get in a fight with Boy George. Put it that way. I think he could. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where it's going to go, although if my sentiment that I'm starting to wear thin of Hancock, I mean, I've worn thin before he even went in there, to be honest, with his antics. I mean, and for saying I fell in love, do you think that was the media training line that he was told to say?
Oh, I think so. Yes, that's really interesting, David. You know, what media training has he had before he goes in?
Oh, huge amounts. He was even saying, because that was one of the questions from Sean Walsh, it was turning into a sort of media show, going, "What training does a politician have before they get in office? You're so." It was a bit of a sort of suck up. You're so good at answering questions. I was pretty sick in a bucket when I heard that.
So, who's your money on to win?
Well, I don't know. It could be it could be, one of the younger people. I mean, normally they come out of the woodwork, don't they? I don't think George will win it. Chris Moyles is coming over very well, I thought. Um,
Mm.
but there's a young chap, Owen Warner, from Hollyoaks, who's like the sort of new Joey Essex, which you can take whichever way you like, but people will know what I mean there. Um, and he's being quite gullible, and I think that may help him. As
Yeah,
some
I
as
think
I
the
thought Mike Tindall was doing. I mean, I'm basically just mentioning everybody in the show now, but Mike Tindall early on, before he appeared to become incredibly tired, which I think most people of an age do. Uh, well, he was quite he's a likable figure anyway. Um,
Yeah, I do like Mike Tyndall. I think he would genuinely be a good person to be, you know, on sort of in the jungle or desert island discs with.
yeah.
But Moyles is interesting, isn't he? Because he's quite a divisive figure.
Yeah, well, he was
Um,
unrecognisable to me. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Where has Chris Moyles been is my first question. He's obviously been on radio somewhere, not on the BBC, but he'd lost an incredible amount of weight. I couldn't. I was sort of wondering, why are you going in the jungle? You don't need to lose any weight. He looked, as they say, he was half the man he used to be. But
mm.
he's been very good. And he was very good at getting the conversation going with Hancock, and I think there's still ground to go with that relationship, I think. I mean, he may take a lump out of him yet. I mean, really, I'm so pathetic. I'm just looking for someone to sort of punch him on the nose, to be honest.
Again, speaking for a nation, possibly.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I think you know, people as ever with reality shows always say, "Oh, I've never heard of these people." But you know, I think the appeal of the show is just the way they end up mixing, and you know, like in the early days of Big Brother when it was a bit deeper than just you know if you're going to get a contract for a new makeup brand when you leave. It is very you know it is very interesting to see the psychological relationships between all these people.
yeah, I sort of hanker for the early days of I'm a Celebrity, though, when they weren't media trained, they weren't told by agents how to play the game. And
Mm,
they would literally argue the toss with each other. I mean, it used to be quite vicious, and some people would have said, "Oh God, no, you can't do that, it's just bullying." But we had decent sort of argument, people were going at each other, and it was better entertainment. But
mm.
I suppose in these days of safeguarding, it's too risky to have this sort of thing happen, but I think that's what this series actually needs. I mean, ITV won't care one way or the other because they're probably getting incredible ratings from it. I think probably 10 to 12 million, something like that, which, um, all the advertisers will be just warming their hands by the cockles of their Christmas hearth on this stuff. I
Yeah, who's the sponsor of the show this year? I can't remember.
Oh, I think it's some bingo
Oh.
lot, I think, typically. But I did notice that TK Maxx was the first advertiser, when they came out of the first Hancock appearance, and I thought, "Well, they've paid a pretty sum to be there, I bet."
Mm.
So here
Yeah.
we are. I don't know how many we'll give a star rating to I'm a Celebrity. I'm sort of 3.5 from me.
Well, I think three kangaroo anuses from me because that's the shape they'll be. Or that's a bit of a rude joke. Because I'm so I mean the Hancock thing is a big draw, but I still don't think sitting politicians should actually be working in the House of Commons for their constituents as opposed to talking about how they fell in love with Gina Coladangelo or whatever her name
Oh,
is.
nice one. Well done. Well remembered, Claire. Very good.
Mm.
Let's
Sounds like an Italian pudding. Yeah.
yeah, it's like an Italian pudding we can't bear to yes, let's leave that anyway. You've been catching up with the English, have you not?
Yes, it's a much hyped drama, and I mean, I think there's so many co-production credits on. You know, in America, it's going out on Amazon Prime, and in England, the UK. Sorry, it's going out on the BBC, and it's
Yeah.
a reinvention of the Western kind of thing. And you know,
And
it's got
putting the
such an
English in the Wild West.
Yes, exactly. You know, you've got Emily Blunt playing Lady Cornelia Locke, you know, and she's, you know, Westerns are always, you know, you've got, I've come to find the man who shot my boy. And Emily Blunt
Does
is
anyone get the
indeed,
wagons in a circle?
I'm sure they will. There have been a few wagons in it so far, but you know, you know, she's super posh lady, and you know, it's a great performance by her. She's a terrific actress, but you know, it's all mysterious and there are many leveled and things will be revealed. But she's come to find the person that killed her son, and it's so complex. I couldn't get my head around it. She meets a wounded wolf, this
She
very
means with
handsome.
the wolf, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, go on.
Yeah, that's his a Native American name, but he's Sergeant Eli Whip,
Oh,
played by
right,
Jasper
okay.
Spencer, and you know he saves her from an incredibly nasty man played by Kieran Hines. Um,
Oh, well, I do like the cast. The casting sounds great.
oh, the
Kieran
cast is
Hines
amazing. You know,
can play anything.
You've got Toby Jones who got, you know, killed off fairly early in the first episode. Spoiler alert, too late.
Oh,
But
what a shame.
I mean, the cinematography is just incredible. You know, the West has never looked wilder or more beautiful, but I just couldn't find any emotional heart to it. You know, you know, you should have, shouldn't you? Should have lots of
Yeah, you
sympathy for
should.
this poor English woman who's, you know, being terribly treated in the middle of the Wild West and she's lost her child. But it's written by Hugo Blick, who I always find a little bit cold. And
Yeah,
this is what I found with this. You know, it's you know you should feel sorry for all the characters. You know, this Native American guide. You know, you see him in terrible circumstances, and there should be sort of, you know, warmth and you know, pity and that you want them. But there's just something unknowable about them and about the
that
drama.
sounds quite mysterious. Do you reckon it's got, returner status?
Um, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, the first episode, the first shots in the drama give away what happens in the end, and obviously, I won't give a spoiler alert for that one. So, I don't think it'll be back for another series. But I think I will watch the second episode. But I don't. I think it's a little bit too clever for its own good.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I think I might give it a go because in the following weeks, we're going to be looking for probably binge watch, programs simply because we'll have I'm a Celebrity and football combining. Oh, the I'm a Celebrity might end just before the World Cup football starts. And, um, just as people don't schedule stuff against I'm a Celebrity, they don't tend to schedule much against football matches either. So that could be a good downloadable, one for viewers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's all available now. But I mean, you know, we've got ITVX starting soon, haven't we?
Yeah, I'm going to a big launch for that next week, so I can update people on it. But there do seem to be some there's Spy Among Friends, um, which has got, Damian Lewis in it, I think.
Mm,
There's a Litvinenko drama starring David Tennant. I mean, my God, he looks the part, doesn't he always?
mm.
He's got this sort of chameleon ability to look like his character rather spookily, but that's another one. And Richard is another drama. I've forgotten the cast of that, but there it it does look quite good, and it is, from what I'm told, it is free, and I think there will be a small paywall as it goes on, but I think initially most hours of ITVX will be available, free to the viewer, so, um,
Mm.
interesting
It's
idea to move the whole focus onto a streamer away from your terrestrial channel. I mean, of course, they'll argue that one's complementing the other, but it doesn't really work that way. I mean, it's incredible with the TV landscape just how conservative the viewer actually is.
yeah, they want more of the same, don't they?
They do, and they sort of I think there's a level that you have to trust a channel, don't you, before you or lose your trust in it before you move away from it. So, I mean, they're going to change ITV back to ITV1, which I think just does that make a scrap of difference? What sort of a meeting came up with that brilliant idea?
I mean, it is so strange, isn't it? And I mean, will the ITV hub continue to exist as a place for all ITV programs? I mean, I think it's very confusing for the viewer.
I think ITV Hub is going to be renamed. I don't know, the
Oh.
Midsummer Murders Hangout or something. I don't. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what's going to be on that. There's still a lot of really good content that you can watch, repeat content. As
Mm.
you know, right from Talking Pictures through to ITV3, this stuff is still there and it's still highly watchable for people. So, if to make me, it's difficult to make me think that people are suddenly going to stream away from the main channels and watch ITVX because I think it sounds weird as well. Is there something? Is it just me that thinks ITVX is a weird sounding channel?
It is. I think it's supposed to sound modern and slightly mysterious, and I mean, I think the mysterious thing is coming across very strongly because nobody really knows what it is. Because obviously, a lot of the publicity material that we get at the end of it says, this program will also be shown at a later date on ITV1.
Mm.
So it just seems, there will be lots of viewers who say, well, why should, I'm not going to watch ITV. I've seen this already, so therefore, will there be any point in ITV1?
Yeah.
Discuss.
Yeah, there'll be I mean, there's a lot of cannibalization like that. I mean, BBC do that with the iPlayer, and they're sort of making their way through it, but it's a difficult landscape at the moment, but there's still, reasonably good things on at the moment, I think. So, I mean, and it'll probably continue until mid-January, then we'll all go, "Oh god, there's no TV to watch."
Yeah, there's a Christmas launches soon as well, isn't there? So we'll get to find out what the Mrs. Brown's Boys Christmas special will be now called
Yeah,
this
I'll be
year.
incapacitated for 2 weeks, I'm afraid, viewer. Just a quick shout out to
Something.
Schedule Filler Doctors, which I watched this week. I just happened to watch Doctors, and
Oh,
someone managed to get an appointment just by walking through the door for a bruised thumb. I thought, "Oh my god, what world are these people living in who write this show?"
you can tell this is fiction, can't you? My God.
And
But it's an odd series.
it is, very odd. I mean, I think most young writers get to go. So, could I, message the BBC and say, "Can some of your researchers and young writers please go to a nearby A&E hospital or GP surgery to find out actually what's going on?" And you'll see a massive queue.
Yeah, I think we should put a shout out, David. What's the most unrealistic thing our listeners have seen on television recently? Do
Yeah,
let us know.
yeah, do let us know. So, good roundup, Claire, and, until next time.
Yes, until next time. Goodbye, David. Goodbye, everyone.